So we focus quite a lot on trying to make a very soft and smooth spirit. The quality of spirit is really the key thing where it all starts. We believe that you can't make whiskey better by putting it in wood. You can only make it more interesting. So we focus a lot on making a very good quality new make spirit. What we then do in the Innovate range is we age it in an alternative style of aging, where we can use different types of wood than just oak. So what we'll taste today is a cherry wood aged single malt spirit and a hickory wood aged single malt spirit. So before I tell you a bit more about where we started, how the business started, let's just pour you some of our cherry wood. Make sure cherry wood. There you go. So please just come by here and just get yourself a nice little grab. There you go. Awesome. Thanks, Brett. Getting a glass. You want some more? You already have. Okay. Just from over here. You want some? This one? Yes, please do. There you go. Thank you. So before I tell you about the history of the distillery, just you can start nosing the spirit. What you'll pick up, it has a quite interesting and lovely spicy nose. It's made purely from single malt, from malted barley. We use a South African malted barley, which we augment with two different types of roasted barleys. That gives you a much more interesting base spirit. We also use our proprietary strain of yeast, which adds quite a lot of the tropical fruit flavors that you'll pick up on the nose, as well as a nice touch of earthiness in the spirit. So it's aged on cherry wood. But what the cherry wood does, it adds quite a lot of spice to the spirit. The new make spirit that's used here is typically quite malty and warm with a touch of tropical fruit flavors. If you add the cherry wood interaction, it adds quite a lot of the spicy flavors as well as touches of ginger. So what you'll taste when you have it in your mouth is quite a dry mouthfeel with not a very long aftertaste. So it's a relatively spicy, playful kind of young single malt spirit. So while you taste that, I will just tell you about where we come from. So I started distilling while I was still at school. And it worked like this. I learned the distilling at an engineering school, which was trying to tell you how to go into engineering. And I said, wow, this process of taking this dark, mushy liquid and getting a beautifully white spirit out of it, this is magical. And I went back to school, got the school's second distillation kit, and taught myself how to do this. And developed quite a lot of fruit brandies in the process. That's what you have access to when you're still at home. And went and studied chemistry, did my PhD in chemistry, and eventually started my own little lab behind my house, learned how to brew, learned how to work with malt, and eventually started the whiskey distillery. We initiated the business about 4 years ago, designed the still, got the premises, get everything ready. We were with our second last test run in March of 2022, and we all know what happened then. Well, we got locked down. And so because of that, we only received our licenses in October of last year. So I hope you enjoy this. Really quite new to the market. Helden Cherrywood Innovate Spirit. Cheers.
South African.
South African, truly South African. Cheers. There's one more for them. Yes. Some more coming in.
Oh, it's that good, huh?
So typically when people come to my distillery for a tasting and say, oh, they like bourbon a lot, this is typically what I present to them first because of that nice kind of spicy fieriness that it has at the start. Although what you'll pick up, that fruitiness does come through on the nose quite a lot. And specifically once you swallow, the fruitiness comes through quite nicely on the nose.
The alcohol.
So this product is bottled at 46%, and we do that because we don't want to chill filter our whiskey. So it's non-chill filtered, all natural color. That all comes from the cherry wood, the color. If you actually take it lower than 46%, this spirit develops a haze. So it's quite jam-packed with all of the tannins and fatty acids that you typically would expect in a proper single malt whiskey.
How would
So
you describe a non-chill filtered whiskey?
A non-chill filtered whiskey typically doesn't have that body in the mouthfeel that you would typically have with a non-chill filtered whiskey, because those molecules which are heavy, which have a nice interaction with your sensory system in your mouth, feel, the taste, you actually remove them with the chill filtration. So we don't believe in chill filtration.
Which is more natural as you can.
As natural as you can go. Although it's an innovative approach, this is as natural as you can get the color and flavor. So what you'll see is in the next batch of this, the color might be slightly darker or slightly lighter, and that's natural if you use the same kind of process. Wood has a natural variation, and we embrace the natural variation that it has.
No, we did change with the water if you add a bit to it.
So if you add a bit of water to it, it typically opens up, like most spirits do. You destabilize these flavor pockets that you typically have with the alcohol, and in this case, more of the fruity flavors typically get out. They evaporate with the alcohol, and you have a much more intense experience in terms of the flavor. And that's also why it's also nice to have a slightly higher ABV. But if you add the water to it, you still have that nice full punch without having the watered down type of whiskey. So you're all through your first one. Can we move on to the second one? The second one is the exact same new make spirit, but we age it with a different type of wood. So this will really showcase how much effect the wood has on the spirit. So this one is aged on hickory wood. Now, hickory is a class of wood in which the pecan-nut tree also falls. The pecan-nut tree and hickory wood, those woods are typically used to smoke hickory ham. So I know some of you probably have had that before. We don't burn this wood, we just toast it. And that unleashes this nice creamy, nutty flavor that the hickory wood brings to the spirit. So where the previous one was quite in your face and bold, this one is more subtle and has a nice creamy, nutty flavor, and the mouthfeel is really much quite different from the previous one. It sticks around much longer aftertaste. So let's do a round of the hickory.
Everybody running now, eh?
Thank you.
This one is lovely.
I'm glad you like it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you flip camera out? If you can see me.
Yeah, so come around this way.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
And one more. There we go.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Where does the hickory come from?
So we started with the hickory, with imported hickory wood from the US. However, we were trying to find some local supply because we're trying to be a very South African focused distillery. And the cherry wood, we have got some local supply. As many of you would know, there's a quite big cherry orchards in the Free State.
Okay.
So you can get cherry wood, you can get in South Africa. However, hickory was a bit more of a difficulty. So we, when we did a bit more research, we found that, well, we've actually got a lot of pecan-nut farms in the Free State, and there's many more coming up. And so we partnered with a farmer who supplies us with hickory, or basically pecan-nut-based hickory wood. Yes.
There's a lot of flavor coming from it.
Yes, so it's a very white wood, and there we also see quite a yellow color in the spirit, where the cherry wood was much more orange and red. And it's a hard wood, and I can tell you that we've when we initially tried to process the wood, we broke a few axes and blades on the wood. It's quite a hard, dense wood. However, once you toast it, it releases quite a lot of flavor, and that's why it's been classically known as a smoking wood.
Okay.
And you can also
So you
buy some of our.
You char it.
We actually don't char this
Don't
wood.
you?
We only toast it. So that we break down the wood structure and unleash these flavors. You can char it, but then it starts to develop that hickory smoke, which is well known in smoked meats. So we stay just below the smoking point of the
So
wood.
the colour is like more golden than
Much more
amber,
golden
yeah.
than the amber of the previous one. Yeah. So the color really depends on also how you toast your wood, how you char your wood. With oak, if you go very low in temperature, you get a very light yellow color. The more you go towards charring it, the darker your amber and your oranges come through. With the hickory, you typically get this kind of gold color that comes through.
the ABV 46.
It's the same as for the cherry wood. It's also 46. This whole range, except the new make spirit, we do at 46%. Yeah.
Awesome.
So it'll pick up initially, it's quite soft and subtle. And the moment you swallow, there's a nice burst of like white pepper that comes through that gives it a bit of character there at the end, just before it goes down. Just make sure like want to get that next
Like
little
where shop
sip.
set up. If there's people there,
Ah, I see. Our Cape Town friends are online here as well. Hey. See some feedback there.
Didn't like what he saw.
Wow, the nose is subdued, the palate is explosive. That's something I like as a distiller to hear, something like that. So I hope you also experience that. So we get some comments down from Cape Town as well here.
With the 46%
Yeah.
alcohol and water to open it up is
Yeah, it actually
you have
helps.
a second go at it.
Yeah, and I typically prefer, of course, a higher ABV. Then you can bring it down to the level that you like and which flavors come through. But I think at this ABV, it's 46. It really showcases the hickory wood quite nicely.
Yeah, it's got a beautiful after finish that lingers on the tongue.
It lingers quite long. Yeah.
it's in the back of the palate.
Are you enjoying this one? Fantastic. So while you're still enjoying that, I'm going to start, just tell you quickly before we get to the gin, just about what we intend to do with our proper whiskies. Our second range is our Premier Collection. And in this range, we will have the Helden single malt whiskey. That will be our main product in the end. And it's made with a very special malt, which is both caramelized and roasted, together with South African malt. And that gives it a nice and rich flavor from the new make spirit already. And the idea with this one is to age it in our hybrid casks, which are made from French oak sides and American oak heads. And we age it in a non-temperature controlled warehouse. That means that with our nice warm Highveld springs, you have got huge interaction with the wood. In the winter, it's extremely cold out there by Paris. We get temperatures -5, -6. That means it slows down the aging quite a bit, but the daytime temperatures are high, so you've got huge fluctuations. That means rapid maturation in the cask. And so our first cask of that is about almost 2 years old, and we hope to, in the next year or two, be able to release our first of our single malt whiskey.
How as a distiller do you decide when to bottle, what season, and what time of day, and anything to do with the moon, or how do you?
So I'm a scientist, so I do not go by moon signals and things like that. However, what I like to do is keep track close to the time which we think it might be right. Take some cask samples and do a tasting with a tasting panel, and then see, okay, do we find any deficiencies in the whiskey? Does it need to age a bit longer? Where does it go? So we've recently taken some cask samples from our cask at 2 years now, and we'll do a map that. Built in my laboratory, we've got a retention store where we keep 50 to 100 ml samples of every product we make, from the new make through all cask samples all the way through, so we can track the full development of each product. And when we feel this is now good enough to be put in the market, it'll be enjoyable, the flavor profile is what we intended, then we release it. So typically you have some casks which are not as lively as other casks. Those might lie a bit longer. Other casks are more intense and they might come out a bit earlier. So we typically have a single cask approach, and where we don't release a whole batch and then vat them, but release a cask at a time. So you will typically see on our bottles the lot number as well as the bottle number on there, and you can trace it back directly to each cask.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So let's then move on to our last product we'll taste today, and that's our gin. Now, most gins are made from alcohol base that is typically try to get as neutral possible alcohol base. We try to do the opposite. We take a specific cut of our single malt whiskey production stream, and we place it in a container until we have enough of that stored up. Then we put it through our still again, and we use our pot and column hybrid still, where we have a pot still connected to a column still, and then we take it through all 8 plates of the column still and create a very, very clean and pure malt-based basis for which we put our botanicals on.
Very similar to Japanese coffee distillation, column still.
Yeah, so this is not a column still in a continuous column sense. It's a column that is in the vapor path of the pot still. So you get the column distillation effect with the multiple plates, but you don't have a continuous distillation. It's still a pot still that's happening.
Cleaning the spirit.
You're cleaning the spirit up. It's basically like putting 8 pot stills in sequence.
Sure.
And that's what we then do. So then we have our base spirit, a malt-based spirit. We infuse it with 12 botanicals, of course, including the juniper. But we also, in these 12 botanicals, we have a local fynbos, which grows on the mountains around the distillery, which we use the flowers in here. It only flowers once a year, so you have to plan quite carefully to get enough flowers to put in here. So we use 12 botanicals to round off the harsh edges that the different botanicals bring to create a well-balanced gin based on the malt spirit. And so the idea of this is to create a type of gin which refers back to the original roots of gin, which was Dutch Jenever. And since Dutch is also my heritage, I would like to showcase my gin today to you. So please come have a small sip of this gin. It's designed to be a sipping gin initially, so you can drink it as is. Transvaal fynbos, yes.
Don't be shy.
Thanks.
I'm just going to go right in front of the camera.
Right in front of the camera. There you go.
Hi.
Hi, guys. There you go.
Thank you.
How do you infuse it?
So we do a macerated gin. So we pre-infuse it, and then we distill it after the infusion. Yes.
Hi, Peter.
Hello, Victor. How are you?
Macbeth.
We have been here the whole time. We've just been in behind the scenes, but we're watching you. We've got about 12 people inside the tasting room, tasting along with you. Just a question from the floor here was, where are the juniper berries from?
So we have got a supplier. It's the juniper berries are from as far as I can remember, from Northern Europe. Since we're still sorting out a constant supply because we make gin very infrequently, we still need to pin down a formal supply chain on that. But at this stage, it is imported from Northern Europe. So yeah. Eventually, we would like to move as much of our production and things to South Africa. However, for you.
Thank you.
However, some of our products are still imported just because of availability. As you can imagine, the supply chains of the last 2 years were quite disrupted.
Well, that's, I think, quite an appropriate product to taste today. Transvaal fynbos, all South African ingredients.
Yeah, South African malts in there and made on our home soil, and celebrating, also my and many of our heritage. So
Beautiful
cheers.
those too.
Thank you. So we call it the quintessence gin, and the idea there is quintessence means 5 essences. So you'll pick up, of course, the juniper, and you'll pick up touches of florals, a bit of spice, quite a bit of herbs, and then there's this, let's call it the mysterious 5th dimension, which the fynbos that we have add. It's a bit slight touch of muskiness that you get there. Yes. So there's a herb we use in there, which is not licorice. It's not aniseed. It's a green herb, but when you distill it, it actually imparts a licorice touch of licorice to it. Yeah. It's actually one of the higher content herbs we use. It's a specific type of tarragon that we have that we use that actually binds the whole set of botanicals together. Yes. We actually grow it by the distillery, from our distillery garden, yes. So it actually has 2 harvests in a year. So you typically get a summer harvest around December. So you cut off all the plants, it grows again, and about March, April, just before the first frost, you take another harvest. And then in the winter, it goes totally dormant. It looks like it's just a brown field in around next to the distillery. And then in springtime now they're pushing out the heads there, and the lovely flavors of the tarragon comes through.
I can taste on the front of my tongue. The flavors on the front of the tongue.
Yeah, it's quite.
It's like a peppery spice.
So the spiciness, you pick up the spiciness here. So there's about, I think it's about 3 spices that we add to this to just give it a bit of liveliness. And then the herbs really rounds off that warm base at the bottom, together with the touches of malt that you have at the bottom.
Any
So
more
although it's
questions there, Hector?
So although this was designed to be a sipping gin, as you're all tasting it at the moment, you can use it with mixers, and because of its nice rich flavors, it does stand up well to different types of mixers. And typically, if people ask a recommendation, we say a very plain Indian tonic or something with some citrus flavors complements it quite well.
That's good. Quite a subtle nose for 43% alcohol.
Yeah, it's actually, if you really want to pick up all the flavors, it's quite nice to just take a few drops and just put it on your hand over here and let it evaporate a bit, and then smell it just like a perfume, and you get like the perfumey effect that it has. It opens up quite a lot then. Yeah. Any other questions from the audience here? Yes, hope you enjoyed.
How's it, Peter?
Hi, Hector.
I'm back again. So there's a bit of a delay, obviously, with YouTube of about 15 seconds. But yeah, really great. Quite an interesting sort of subtle, sort of soft pink note, like almost a little bit of rose coming through there, which is quite interesting, actually. Oh.
Yeah. Hi
Like
there.
I'm telling you, this gin's amazing.
Your gin is amazing.
Well, that's quite nice. Hi, everyone in Cape Town. It's great to have a tasting with you, even though there's a bit of a delay. So you mentioned the florals. Yes, it has quite a bit of floral notes to it. We use some lavender in here, and to just round it off a bit. And then of course the fynbos flowers. But through the combination of the different flavors, and when you distill it, it also has interaction with our copper still. Some additional flavors do develop, which are not in the original ones. You mentioned the pink flavor. It's interesting that the fynbos that we use, although when you smell the flavors as is, it's very subtle. If you actually distill it together with these other ingredients, it develops this like a florally musky kind of flavor that it adds to this. And if you add a bit of water, it opens that up quite a
For
bit.
me, when I drink the whiskey, I've got an after tingling finish. With the gin, there's no aftertaste. It's there, it's on your top of your tongue, and it's gone.
Yeah, it's very, very light and it's not a heavy aftertaste there. And that's, I think, because also, although it's made from the malt spirit, which typically has a quite weightiness to it, we distill it effectively. The total number of times it's been distilled before it goes into this specific bottle is about 10 to 11 times. So we really clean up the spirit a lot without removing the nice soft flavors from the
Which
malt
will
in there.
lead to a less severe hangover because of the quality.
I do hope so. I do hope so.
Yeah.
I typically try to avoid gin hangovers in general. Stick to the whiskey if you don't want a hangover. But yeah, I assume that would be the case. I'll wait for all of you to give me some feedback on that. Candy floss done right. No, that I think that's I'll take as a compliment there. Thank you. And that brings us to the end of my side of this. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day here with the Whiskey Shop and down there in Cape Town as well. Hector, any further comments or questions from your side down there? I think they would give them 10 seconds for the delay. So
Yeah. Decoder. There's some comments coming in.
some comments there. That's work awesome.
Yeah, it's Helden Spook awesome. We've decided that's it. It's a beautiful candy floss. Really, really superb gin. I must say, very impressed. Very impressed with the cherry wood as well. Got a beautiful extraction over there. And that the nose on the hickory was very subdued, but beautiful. Big palate. Fantastic whiskey. Can't wait for these things to eat 3-4 years. They're going to be amazing. Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Hector.
summary.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hector.
And
Enjoy there in Cape Town.
yeah, enjoy down there. Enjoy the rest of the Helden Spirits. Go pour yourself some more. Anyone want some more? Please come.
Thanks for your time. I appreciate it, man.
Cheers,
Cheers.
Bye-bye. Oh, well done. Very good. Yeah, that's very good. It's the first. Thanks, Peter.